How long does it take to like actually change or curb a habit?
To rewire?
Yeah.
About 3 weeks, 27 days. Yep.
But why did you do it? Was it like a challenge? Was it that you felt like...
I like to have fun, and that was fun for me.
Okay, so disclaimer. She's looked at my brain. We may not talk about how slow or fast it is, but... Welcome back to the podcast. I really don't know what episode we're on. 7 or 8, possibly.
Probably.
But we've got a dear friend in the house today. I call her Havs. I will let her do a proper introduction of her and her background and why she's important to all of us. But yeah, we're stoked to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
Talk about health and wellness and your background. And yeah, you do some really cool stuff. So I don't want to spoil it or say it wrong. So why don't you give us a background on you and kind of what you do for other people and yeah, how special you are.
Totally. Thank you for that. So my name is Havilande. I own Apogee Neuro. It's a neurofeedback and counseling clinic, and it's a really unique way of looking at how humans experience themselves and how they learn about themselves. So what neurofeedback is we take a QEEG, a quanto-electroencephalogram, and we're mapping the brain, looking at specifically brain electrical activity, so brain waves. We are computers. We are programmed by our epigenetics, by our lifestyle habits, by cortisol, stress factors, how we eat, what music we listen to, what we're watching. Everything is constantly programming us. So if we find like, man, I'm getting more anxious or I'm not sleeping, we really have to look at the hardware, which is the brain. So if, like your iPhone, if it's slow, what do? We update it or we get a new phone. That's what we're doing with neurofeedback. We have an exact roadmap to your brain specifically, so we can reward or inhibit the brainwaves that are present. So that's
okay. So disclaimer: she's looked at my brain. We may not talk about how slow or fast it is, but very unique perspective on like changing your habits, or like you work with a variety of different people. Like there's NFL players that do this to increase their cognitive focus and actually. What we're talking about a little bit is rewiring your brain to be better. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Adaptive. Yeah. And so what I came to this from is essentially from functional diagnostic nutrition. And when I was working with clients for hormones or gut health, oh, by the way, I'm really stressed out, or I had this traumatic event when I was a kid. So I was like, oh crap, I need to get more schooling. So I went back and got my master's in clinical mental health and psychotherapy to become a therapist.
Okay.
But then what I realized is in therapy, if you and I are talking about an issue, like, hey, this thing really sucks, every time we talk about that issue, you have to make a neurochemical to reinforce, yeah, that was a crappy experience. And we're continuing to rewire that network that we don't want anymore. That's why people stay in therapy for so long, is they're not actually shifting the behavior. And or they're trying to override how they are thinking. Like if we're constantly worried about something, we become addicted to, much like nicotine or alcohol. If we're constantly making cortisol and a day's going good, what are we going to do? Subconsciously worry about something to get that experience because we're familiar with it. We're in homeostasis with being out of balance. So neurofeedback really says, hey, here's the brain. Let's get the system up to date so that you can be more motivated to go to the gym, to sleep better. And it really takes the efforting out of it in addition to psychoeducation and counseling.
So what is the process of like rewiring? Like, it's not like a physical thing, is it? I have no idea about this.
Totally, great question. So in some ways it is. So we get your roadmap, we get how your brain's working. It's about a 30 to 40 page report. And let's say, hey, Havilande, I'm really distracted and I'm not sleeping well. So there's a variety of different brain waves, starting from delta, it's the slowest brain wave, theta, alpha, low beta, mid-range beta, then high beta. All of those tell me as a practitioner and where they're located, what's going on for the person. So, hey, I'm distracted and I'm not sleeping. So we take the electrodes, we put them on the scalp where there's too much slow brainwaves or too much fast brainwaves, and we reward or inhibit the brainwaves via biofeedback. So you're essentially sitting in a chair, you've got a headset on, you're going to be watching a TV show of your choice. It's a really cool, really easy modality.
Weird experience, but it's weird how it works.
And every time the brain is doing what we want it to do, you're going to hear a sound. And every time the brain's doing what we want it to do, the screen's going to get really, really bright. So you're watching the show and it gets dark and it's like, wait, I was watching that. And the brain's trying to figure out, okay, how do I make it do that sound or make it bright because I want to watch this show?
Right.
It's like a toddler or a baby watching TV. They don't know what they're looking at, but we all love stimulation.
Right.
So it's rewiring the brain to its most adaptive state in a passive way of learning.
I thought it was going to be like shocks.
No shocks. No scary things
You
here.
do have to put some really cold gel on your head, but that's about it. But so,
Well, what did you watch when you did it?
I don't remember. Friends? I think
Friends,
we watched
yeah.
Friends because Megan loves to watch Friends, and it's like a
That
thing
worked
that like
well because I thought that was like background. It's
it-
on.
okay,
every
but that
time
was
I go
kind
to
of
your
the
house.
point. Yeah, I know, but it's like it's background noise, but you have to make it important, like to get your reward in a sense. But like
Okay.
you're sitting there, and once Havilande gets to look at, like, we kind of sat down and looked at my brain and said, okay, maybe what's going on here, or why am I sporadic? I'm dealing with 1,000 things getting thrown at me. And it's like, how can we curb that? Now, I didn't follow through. We didn't get done with doing this. I probably need to go back and finish it for sure. But like, I know that there's NFL quarterbacks that use it. Like Kirk Cousins is a big proponent of it. He has a system at his house, and he'll go out into his car before training or going into practice, and he'll do these exercises, and he's watching it on his phone, and the screen's going in and out. They did an ESPN thing on it. It's really fascinating stuff to like know that you can like trade habits, or like you actually can actually rewire your brain for a different outcome. It just takes practice and time.
And it can be really relieving too for someone to say, like, oh, this makes sense to me, because I can read a brain map report and be like, hey, something happened to you at the age of 6, and this is probably how you deal with conflict in a relationship, and you probably don't sleep well. And so you're able to see it's the story about your brain, because our brains are an autobiographical sense of self. Everything you've done is stored in there, whether you remember it or not. And in talk therapy, we can't always consciously get there.
Right.
So if we're actually getting in the deep substructures and understanding the brain, we can actually really have a finite goal and end in mind and process to get the person to where they want to be.
So you're like coupling it with talk therapy is like a piece of it, and then you're doing this in addition, or can you just do this?
You can just do this. I kind of like the cherry on top of giving them the psychoeducation.
Right.
Because our personality, who you are, has created your personal reality called your life. And if you don't like your life, it's time to look at your personality, and that's how you think, how you act, and how you feel.
Right.
So I'm really big on like, what are tangible tools that you can actually implement that make sense for you as the individual, not generalized, that you can tie in with the neurofeedback. Because if the brain is getting healthier outside of session, you're going to think differently, you're going to be more motivated. It's still continuously to train even outside of the neurofeedback.
That's crazy.
It's
so
fun.
Can you what all can you do? Like, can you change, like changing habits and stuff like that? But could you, like, for an athlete or something, could you get them into like a certain like mind state through
Peak performance? Absolutely.
Right.
So this
Really?
goes anywhere, ages 8 to, I think my oldest client was 92. I worked a lot with the Denver SWAT and FBI, so a lot of PTSD, trauma, ADHD clients, OCD, relationship. Like, we're working with the brain, so the sky's the limit here.
That's so wild. It makes me want to do it. You need to go finish.
I got shit to fix.
Don't we all?
Yeah, no, so it's fascinating, and I want you to, like, without, you can't probably talk about patients, or you may have case studies or stuff like that, but like, I thought it would be really cool for you to come in here, and we can maybe start off of things that like are near and dear to me, and like people know it when the military guys come in here and they sit in here and we swap stories, and like I'll get emotional about shit, and it's just like because of what they've been through, what they've lived through, and like we have like a feeling or a calling that like we want to do something, we want to be somewhat involved, or be able to help people. And I think this is maybe one of those opportunities that I think we have a pretty decent following with the military, just out of our respect for those people. But like, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Like you've helped a lot of these people from, you're taking calls in the middle of the night that aren't fun, and really helping people. So maybe talk about the military side, the PTSD side, just for a minute, and maybe the hope that's out there?
Absolutely. A lot of the clients I see, this is kind of like, I've tried everything, medications, therapy, you name it. And so this is really a nice, unique way to say, hey, I see you, I hear you, this makes sense, this is what your brain looks like. Specifically with PTSD, what we typically see is a lot of the amygdala, which is the fear center, you have 2 of them, they're really, really enlarged and they're really, really heightened. So if your brain is in a real or perceived state of stress, it's going to be next to impossible to heal. Even though you're doing all the things in 3D and physical reality, you're trying, but you're pushing a canoe upstream when it's like, hey, we can turn the canoe around and go downstream. Additionally, a lot of the frontal lobe execution, so that executive functioning, a lot of that is really heightened or really, really slow, so they can feel disassociated, disconnected, and that inhibits them from actually talking to people and being in community and doing fun things and doing, going out in nature. They know they love to do that, but it's not possible if the brain's in a maladaptive state. So the goal is to really get the brain out of survival and into a state of creation where it's relaxed so it can think more abundantly, more creatively. If you're focused on the problem, that's where your attention is, and you're going to be constantly making those neurochemicals unconsciously, that's going to be so normalized for you that it's going to be normal to wake up and feel shitty again and again and again and again. So taking that relief of like, hey, let's get your brain online so you have the space to think differently, more abundantly, they're able to actually make change.
Very cool.
So have you ever, are there studies that where, I guess, like looking at the brain and what happens when you're out in nature and I guess, what does that look like or do? Does it change?
Yeah, absolutely. So nature is an amazing thing. We all need more of it. We don't live in a very adaptable world. We're getting further and further away from it.
Right.
And so the biggest thing about nature is its relationship to cortisol, which is our stress hormone. It creates inflammation in the body. Every single cell in our body has a cortisol receptor. So when you get stressed, it affects everything. And the interesting piece about this, and this is kind of a tool I use with my clients, if you get pissed off in traffic, let's say, and you're like, oh God, this guy cut me off.
Right.
It takes 3 days, 72 hours to detoxify from cortisol. So if you are getting pissed off, it's like, do I want to give that external thing my autonomy? It's like, hell no, you don't. So even just having that's a psychoeducation of okay, that makes sense. When you're in nature, you start to decompress and detoxify from cortisol. You're grounding with the nature, the ions, the eons of the earth. You're actually able to be less stimulated because you are not being attacked, if you will, by all these external things. And it's important too for people that have a hard time being in nature. It really begs the question, why are you uncomfortable sitting with yourself or being with yourself? So it allows the space to actually, okay, I'm going to reflect, I'm going to be connected, think more abundantly, get out of survival, because we are made from the elements, and getting connected back to that is so important.
So is well, I mean, you heard me on the phone today. I got to stop doing that because we were talking on my way, and I was like, this motherfucker, and so immediately.
I got some serious road rage friends, and he knows who he is. Every conversation, don't call me when you're driving in the truck anymore.
Right.
It's because you're addicted to that neurochemical, though.
So are you just feeling when you're not in nature and we're in Denver, and you're driving and you have all of these things coming in, it's just heightening, and then if something happens, you're essentially triggering every cell in your body to be stressed, and it is that's interesting to think about, or that it has a carryover effect outside of just that moment. But it's also interesting to know that if you go out to nature, it's you really don't, you're not connected, you don't have your laptop or your phone in front of you and all of that stuff, and it seems everybody needs to do that more, because when it happens constantly when you're driving around the city or you're doing anything, it's you have so much data coming in that you don't even realize, and that has to be stressful or not normal for us.
Well, we've talked about it on previous podcasts. We brought up Havilande on multiple podcasts of talking about this same thing of taking your kids to Disneyland or taking them out camping and truly disconnecting. I was just gone for 2 weeks doing this, and it's you have so much time and you think about so much shit. Like you said, are you not scared to go sit by yourself, but without anything, can you
Are you
do
bored?
it?
Right.
Yeah.
Are you bored?
Or do you go find something to do, some way to connect? And when you talk about these things, I'm just sitting over here like, damn, that happened to me last week. That happened to me the week before. And like, those were 2 awesome weeks of like, I mean, without Elon and Starlink, like I was gone. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was, you're not getting a hold of me. You know, we had our phone as a map, and that was it. And it was refreshing. So we talk about it all the time. And one of the main reasons I wanted you to come was like, yeah, what happens to you out there? Is there anything, you know, chemically? I know you talked about the cortisol and stuff like that, but parents getting their kids out, like there's like data and studies of like, it's way better for you to get out into nature. Well, like way better.
Right.
The big thing is that it's giving you kind of a dopamine break. So throughout the day, like your coffee, the music, your iPhone, Instagram, like you're constantly getting dopamine, and this is natural dopamine. So it's a good dopamine detox. It can take about 4 to 5 days to actually get those serotonin and dopamine receptors to be clear and ready to uptake again. So those are all really, really important factors. When you're in nature too, you are creating from the present moment, like you are present with what is.
Yep.
Versus being in the city or going out throughout your day-to-day. We're constantly either thinking about the future, hey, I've got these tasks I need to get done, which is anxiety, or we're creating from the past, like this was a really crappy event that's going to put us into depression. So it's really about getting like, okay, I'm here with nature, what do I want to create? Because that's all we have to create from is that present moment.
So do you suggest that people go out with like a goal in mind? Let's say I know I'm going camping, or you know you're going out and you're like, yeah, I'm going to try to work on something or keep some sort of mindfulness on something. Is that helpful, or is it just really being in it and just experiencing it?
So I have mixed opinions on this. I think intention is very important, right? If you're going to do something, like have an intention behind it, but don't become too attached to the intention. So if you're like, my goal on this camping trip is this thing, if you're so attached to this thing, you might miss the bigger thing. So it's like, I'm going to be mindful of like, I want to explore this question about myself, but I'm open to whatever else comes up. And that's what I think people in survival, it's like, this is my problem. And it's like, there's always a solution bigger than we've thought it. We've just created a box that we need to dissolve. So being open to the bigger picture, essentially.
And you've done, without naming names, like you've done this stuff in nature. Like you go to retreats, like you are a soul. You are like, you are very connected. Like, and that's why our friend group gets so much out of you, is because you are very connected in that way. But you've done this with clients too. Like this, you're not like speaking any bullshit here. Like I know the places you've been and the things you've done, and it's all in nature. It seems like, right? Nature
is the most grounding agent, right? Like it's so important to be connected back to you, because I think Mother Nature is in some ways a form of consciousness, right? It's a living, breathing element. And there really is no separation between us and nature, and we've gotten so far apart that getting back in alignment, people really try to intellectualize their problems, and the more you think about it, the more that you're making that neurochemical. So it's like, how do we actually get the body to feel happier in alignment with how you're thinking? And that's where that crossover occurs. Should that make sense?
You should move on to a farm, Tanner.
I want
Get some chickens, some goats.
Oh my God, it's like my dream. Well, I won't. You were talking about grounding and all of that stuff, and I've heard of like these EMF mats, and I know I'm jumping off topic, but
no, go for it.
Help me understand what that does, because to me, if you had asked me a few years ago, I would have said that's bullshit,
crazy.
Sure. Sure.
But I've heard a lot of stuff about it, and a lot of people do it. A lot of people sleep on EMF mats, like, or there's these grounding shoes and all of that stuff, and like
biomats. Yep.
Right. I mean, is there really some
there
science?
There is very big scientific evidence on grounding.
Really?
So when we put our feet in the earth, right, we're getting all of the eons, ions, everything, the frequencies, and even minerals, trace minerals from the ground. And we are in an environment that has a 67% increase in EMFs as of last year from one year to the next. So we're constantly being bombarded with frequencies, your microwave, your cell phones, your watches. Like I never wear one of those watches because it's constantly messing with your physiology. So when you're in nature, you're actually able to connect with that. It takes about 20 minutes minimum. So if you're going to go grounding, take 20 minutes to have bare feet in the water or in the grass or on the ground. But think how little you spend with your bare feet on your ground today. You know what I mean? How often do you do that? We're so disconnected.
Yeah.
And we're getting charged. I mean, we are an electrical unit. We're getting charged by the earth. But now we're getting charged by these signals that are artificial. So people are getting more mental health issues because they're not spending time to get that.
Interesting. So, like, if you were to walk around on like the cement, would that not do
Nope,
it?
It would not do it.
Damn. Every morning I go outside and I water my garden, and it's all on my patio outside
you're
because
like, "Damn it, I
don't
didn't."
live on a farm. And yeah, so that wasn't doing it, clearly.
Okay,
But-
so one thing about the EMF maps, this might be a little more far-fetched, but I was watching one the other day and learning about it. Does it really matter if you sleep with your head to the north?
No, it does not matter. I don't think
Okay.
it matters.
Well, I sleep with my head to the north.
You're like, but I do, so brownie points. I've tried the
Nice.
grounding sheets. Like the first night I was
Yeah.
out for like 12 hours, and I have a
Really?
biomat which heats up coils, so it turns over your mitochondrial cells to detoxify. I swear by them. I love them.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I might need to
Maybe
try
I
it.
should try one of those.
Yeah, seriously. I sleep horribly.
What other
It doesn't
therapies
help
are you
Neurofeedback.
interested
English
in?
bulldogs are a nightmare to try to sleep with too, but you know. So like sleeping with your cell phone next to you, how far away do you need to keep it to
I-
not get that?
I would honestly say at like 12 feet minimum, but probably even out of the room.
Really?
And putting it on Do Not Disturb doesn't, phone off,
Doesn't do it.
nope.
So is it
They're
like
still recording you.
They're listening.
What
Always.
does it do to you, or what do those frequencies do to your? Does it just? Yeah. How does it throw you off?
Yeah, so think about a microwave. How a microwave works is it vibrates the molecules, water molecules, to heat it up, to conduct it.
Right.
And so that's what's happening to us all day, every day. I mean,
Do you get that from cell, like signal, or like so? Getting away, like, is that the same frequency? Like, can you, like, from like cell signal coming in or going?
like if you were in nature with your phone, would that be?
Are you talking about like
No,
Wi-Fi signal and like
yeah,
stuff
like
like
that stuff. Like, is that
We're
different? Worse?
No, it's slightly. I mean, it's slightly different. We're still getting bombarded with it.
Right.
We're still attached to it.
Right.
But being out in nature, we're further away from that.
Okay. Yeah. So get out where you have no cell coverage, and you know you'll be good.
That's why one of my 4 Instagram accounts says chasing no cell signal.
What
Or
are you
at least
for?
one of them. I don't know why I have 4. I have like 100 emails too, but that's one of the big things. I think it's different when you are so disconnected, or like we're watching this new show called Outlast on Netflix, and it's people they drop in Alaska, and it's like a real life Hunger Games kind of. It's weird how it starts. No
Right.
one's killing anybody, but they're getting like they just drop out, and you got to finish with a team. But like what these people go through, or the connectedness that they have, like immediately to people when they're out, they're like told they don't even know who each other are when they're dropped off. All of a sudden they're bawling when people are leaving, and it's like they're truly getting connected somehow, or fully disconnected to be connected. I don't know if that makes sense.
Connection is the cure. Like we live in artificial connection here, right? So when you're actually forced to share intimate moments and make the food together, like you're actually really spending quality time and bonding, and you're making different neurochemicals too.
That doesn't make sense to me. Like, so you're creating a different type of connection with people because you're.
Let's say I invited you over for dinner at my house versus, hey, now we have to go get the wood to build the campfire, to light the campfire. Do you have this? And it's a lot more meaningful because you're actually engaging more.
Okay. Well, that side of it does make sense then.
It's like when you got to do something hard with somebody else, and it like immediately bonds you. Or like I go elk hunting with Havilande's husband, and it's like the first time we went, I had this like view of Clark, and I was like, I don't know if this guy's gonna be able to keep up with me. And then we went and did some really hard shit together, and like he didn't miss a beat. And it was like
Right.
we were that one trip that we took together, we all, like the 4 of us, all immediately bonded like on a whole different level than being friends from when we were in construction. I think that's how fast it can literally change. Is if you go camping with somebody, or you meet somebody on the trail and you got to help somebody on the trail, and then all of a sudden it's like you just met somebody new, totally disconnected, and now you're immediately connected like that.
And just not having distractions too, like for kids or even adults, like you don't have the TV to go turn on. You don't have to, like there's just so much BS that happens in the background where it's like, you don't have those options. So
Right.
what do you want to talk about, you know?
Right. Well, you have 2 kids, right?
Three. Yeah.
Sorry. Is there something, or can you speak to like a benefits to taking your kids out and going, camping or being in nature with your kids? Is there something that it does to them that's
Definitely. It's
they're
really
very
good
malleable.
really good for their nervous system. So we've got our autonomic nervous system, which has the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. So it down-regulates nervous systems around 33% within the first 4 hours because we're just feeling connected and we're relaxed and we're
Right.
curious. For kids, too, it gives them the opportunity to learn and to play and get dirty. Like even playing in the dirt can really change our gut microbiome. Like we need to have more dirt in our lives. Everything is so
Hand
pasteurized.
sanitizer and
Everything. Like
yeah.
hand sanitizer is the worst for you.
really?
Yeah,
So are mud
totally.
baths like a real thing that like
100%.
really
like,
good for you?
get
I saw,
dirty.
what was the show that I was watching on Suits where Lewis takes mud baths all the time and everybody makes fun of him. But like now I'm like, oh, I can go
it's-
actually go try this.
Great for you. It's great for you. Like, why are kids getting so sick all the time now?
They're just not exposed enough.
No, we're not. They were sheltering them. They've got the EMFs. They're not in nature. They're watching TV. They can't talk to their parents. They're not allowed to be curious. Like, there's so many things that have been suppressing them over
Right.
time.
And it seems like, I know, when we were kids and stuff, it's like, yeah, go out and play. And it was like you didn't really have adults telling you what you needed to do, but you like go figure out how to have fun or go out and like adventure. We'd go on camping trips and stuff like that. And Dad'd be like, yeah, go get firewood.
I mean,
and
we
we'd
all
have
gr-
to like go.
We'd all grew up going to the same places. Like we're all from Omaha. She grew up on a farm
Right.
too. Like she has this curious nature of like, we all grew up basically within 30 miles of each other, didn't know each other when we were kids. But we've swapped stories. We've
Yeah.
all done the same shit in Nebraska and Iowa.
Right. Well, it's interesting to think about, like, self, like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like kids just aren't, it doesn't feel like they're able to go like do stuff like that anymore. It's like they're always like checking and just like the self-reliance of kids and stuff like that. And I don't know if we got that from when we grew up or if it was nature, going out and doing those, long week and a half long trips out in Canada and stuff.
I feel like when we go to all these events and people like, what was the last one we were at? The Toyota event we were just at. It was like
Oh, right.
out in the middle of a field, and like you see those kids running through fields in movies and they're like laughing and having fun, like the old school movies where it's just like go run through a bed of flowers and see if you have fun or whatever. If you want to like see kids truly have fun, like be kids again, that you're like, where the hell did that come from, right? Go watch them run around in a field at one of these events where they're outdoors and there's other kids and they meet them and now all of a sudden they're playing tag in the forest and hide and seek and different stuff like that. It's watching something that's like, I've seen it with your kids. So it's like, it like truly happens where they get really curious of like, what's around that tree? And like,
Right.
what is this? Like your kids are very connected and like we know that. And,
Right.
and it's really cool to see, but you almost like light up when you see it. 'Cause you're like, I remember running around like that when I was a little kid, but now you don't let them out their front door without a tracker on them or a watch or
Right, and then you have the EMFs again, right? On
then you
kids.
wonder
Right.
why they're crazy.
Right.
Yeah, and being in nature allows them to think creatively. Like you're making forts and doing like
Right.
you get to create.
Right.
We're not creating at home.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, not to jump subjects, but we kind of touch on the PTSD stuff and
Yeah.
all of that. But, like I was talking to, I forget his name. But they went out and did a big, ex-military guy, like, hike into nature and like getting away. Like, I guess how important is it for people to do that stuff that maybe, I guess we kind of talked about it, but
Well,
you know what I'm trying to
Yeah,
get at?
better.
is
I
it-
think a better way to ask it is like, where is it on the level of importance when you start working with a client to tell them to get out in nature too?
Oh,
Right.
I would say people should be going on walks at least once, twice a week, minimum of 30 minutes. But I think people at least once a quarter should be spending a weekend at minimum getting out. and about.
That's right. I mean, like, I think that's 4 camping trips a year. That's more than I would say that most consumers do. And I think it's because there's, we got sports, you got all the busy parts of this, but really taking care of yourself. And I think once you experience it, and I always kind of challenge people, like, if you're scared or nervous to do this, there's really no better place to sleep than under the stars, like in kind of an uncomfortable, and it's like, get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's like, you'll grow so much through this process if you take a chance, or if a single dad takes his kid out to go camping and like have that weekend like a Boy Scout, or even a single mom, like, go do it. It's not as hard as what you think. And at Free Spirit, we've got the tools for you to come here and go out for a weekend. Like, you need your car. You've got a safety net there of your car, something you're every button, how it works. Like, just don't miss the opportunity, because you're going to grow so much you just do it once. It's like going to the gym. If you can get there for a week or 2 and create some sort of habit or have a good experience, become addicted to something good, just keep doing it.
And even if the experience is humorous and you have a hard time and you're fumbling through it, it's like so good that you're having an experience.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and that's what I really want to encourage people to do, is like, go try it. If you haven't, give yourself the experience, because you will figure it out and it will be fun. And if not, you'll have a great memory. Like, humans need to live more. Like, the most secure thing in life is death. And people want to do all these things and make these memories, and then they don't do it because they're tied up in the monotony. It's like, no, we have to go experience where we came from, which I believe is Mother Earth and nature, and be one with that.
So tell us about, because you not only do this brain stuff, but you're also in psychotherapies and different stuff like that. And maybe this is a totally random different subject, but like, the craziest place that you've been, that you've traveled to like try to get something out of Mother Earth, let's just say that. Have you had any like experiences that are just like, God, that was like super profound, and I wish I could go back there?
I've had a lot of really profound experiences, some of them that are so magical that it's almost hard to put into words. But I will say that if you are open to being surprised, you will get surprised. And I don't think you need to go seeking something. As long as you're open to it, it's going to come find you.
Interesting.
Right. Well, you just swam Alcatraz, so we talked about that.
Yes, yep.
I guess from somebody that looks at that and is like, fuck no. But why did you do that?
That was me. I was the like little guy over in the corner. I was like, does she know that there's great whites in there?
Right. I was like,
she's seriously going to go do this?
It's pretty murky in that water, isn't it?
I know you're a badass, but like, is this a risk worth taking right now?
Right. But why did you do it? Was it like a challenge? Was it that you felt like...
I like to have fun, and that was fun for me. I love to swim. I like to be, right, even in nature there. Although it's in the city, it's like, let's go try to do something hard and have an experience. If you do it, great. If not, you have an experience. Like, you are always going to be on the profit side, no matter what happens.
Right.
Any amount of effort is you're winning. Any amount of effort, but you got to swim with Olympians, like people that were going to the Olympics, right?
That was a little intimidating. We had some badass people. I was like, oh my god, but I made
He's really tall.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
I like when I think about like doing hard stuff or.
But the fact that you can say it's hard, like, so a psychoeducation tool. If something is really hard, automatically I'm making a neurochemical that's going to make it harder for me. So it's really about how you're thinking about things too.
So if I think about things like when I get in the cold plunge and I'm just like, I'm not going to tell you what I say it to myself in my brain, but it's not a good thing, it's like, come on, don't be a and so is that not what I should be telling myself? That is not what
you should be telling yourself.
I should be telling myself what?
So, great question. So, I think there's a lot of toxic positive psychology. So, there's a lot of people like say affirmations, say healthy things. But if you are feeling really crappy and you're like, just think positive and I can do this, your body physiologically is like, no, I'm really suffering still.
Right.
So, it's about first getting your thoughts to a place of neutrality. Humans make meaning. You're the one that is attaching, this is hard, this is easy, this is fun, this is not fun. So, if you're like, man, I'm really curious. This cold plunge is cold. Like, having no attached meaning to it, and then starting to tie in some stuff like, I'm really proud of myself that I got in this cold plunge. Good job. Like really starting to work towards that more positive side. But if you can't get there, nothing has meaning. You're the one that puts the emotional charge to it. So if you're bashing on yourself, that's just going to affect you negatively. Even though you're doing something positively, you're working upstream. Like,
even
why
if I
double
feel
down?
really good afterwards. Okay, because it's usually like, all the bad things, and then I'm like, see,
you probably
did
feel
that,
really
and
good
you feel great
because of the cause and effect, though. I did this thing, therefore I'm good. And we don't want to have a cause and effect way of thinking.
So what would you suggest that I do?
Get in the cold plunge. I'm going to get curious to see how I feel. Let's just, and actually be with yourself. Like, check in with, like, how do I feel? Rather than being like, it's like that, how is that serving you in any capacity? So it gives you the
I don't know. It's making me like not want to be that. So then I get in the cold plunge, I guess. I mean, is how I look at it.
But I think you're saying that you're going to take more leaps if you switch that one thing. And I mean, I probably do need to go back and do my brain stuff, but it's how long does it take to like actually change or curb a habit? I know it's probably different for everybody. Like if he just started thinking different about the cold plunge every time he got in, just consciously thinking totally different about what he's doing, how long does that take to like set into that? That's like how you think now.
To rewire?
Yeah.
About 3 weeks, 27 days. Yep.
All right. I can do that.
But if you think about it, it's really where your launching pad is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give the example of a mom who's working 3 jobs and she's going back to school and she's doing it because she doesn't want to be a stay-at-home mom and and she wants to pay the bills. There's the same mom, person number B, who's working 3 jobs. She's going back to school and she's like, I really want to be a good role model and I want to learn more. They're doing the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Their trajectory is totally different because of the way they're looking at it. So if you're in the cold plunge, talking negatively about yourself to motivate yourself, you're motivating yourself from a place of fear and low self-esteem.
Right.
Where you can motivate yourself from like, man, I feel effing good after I do this.
Right.
Good job. Like 2 totally different physiological networks you're working on.
I could make so many more birdies if I thought like that.
So I always ask myself, where's my launching pad coming from?
Right.
Every subject has 2 subjects. So even the word selfish, if I said what's selfish mean, it probably means like you're only thinking about yourself. But then there's the wanted version of being selfish of like, I don't want to go to that party. I want to do this thing of caring about yourself. So every time I'm thinking, I'm like, is this the not wanted or the wanted version? I'm going to choose to think about it in the wanted fashion because there's so much duality in life. So
like when you do something that is uncomfortable, even if it's not necessarily hard, but very uncomfortable, like, you talked about, single dad or mom going out camping with their they know how good it's going to be, but they're scared of it. I guess, is there, you would just think in that same way, like I want to do this and this is going to be really good. And you just kind of like try to push that fear out, or do you try to?
Well, the reality is they don't know that's going to be really good.
Well, that's
right?
true. Yeah.
So it's going back to a place of neutrality of, I'm really curious how this trip's going to be. And I'm going to learn something and I'm going to have an experience. And taking that first step of having the experience, then they actually have information like, oh, I could have tweaked this, I could do that, that was really fun. So that's what it's, people make meaning and compartmentalize these blocks. And we're like, but we don't know. We don't know that.
Right. You just have to be open to the experience and having it, whether it's probably going to be good.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
But
well, you have to be, I think you have to be ready. Like, I think some of the most important things I've heard is like, whenever you decide to do something, be conscious of like, you think about how you're going to feel in a sense, or just be conscious about if things could feel different and it's a good thing, So that's a failure to launch in a sense for me. It's like, I know what this could result in if I would just put my head down and go and live through the journey and learn something through the journey.
And like your mind is so objective. If I'm like, hey, that taco that we had last week, it was the guacamole. Like my brain doesn't know it's last week. It's making chemicals being like, yeah, that was awesome.
Right.
And so a good tool is, if you think about the future tense in a positive way, I'll use this metaphor of, imagine you smoke 10 packs of cigarettes each day. And I'm like, dude, you got to stop smoking. This isn't good. I'm young. I'm healthy. Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward 20 years down the road, you're at the hospital. Doctor comes in. Hey, you've got stage 4 lung cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I come in behind the doctor. How much money would you pay yourself to knock it off? Probably anything, because you're going to die. But you're not thinking about it now.
Right.
So if you can think about who do you want to be, how do you want to show up, what experiences do you want in the future tense, that can help magnetize and bridge that gap.
You're pretty good at that. I mean, like, I think Tanner, of all people, I think you take that your future and living a long and healthy life, you're going to control as much as you can now.
Yeah,
Right.
probably. But for some reason, maybe, and this may be a bad thing, but it's probably out of fear.
There's no fear. You're going to die.
I know,
Go
but
have
I
some
just want to, I
experience.
don't want to die anytime soon.
Totally.
And it's interesting to hear. I just don't, and maybe I'm thinking about it the wrong way. And I should be thinking about it like, not just that I don't want to die, maybe like all the reasons why I want to
Is it
live.
okay to talk about your scare?
Totally, yeah.
Okay, so not only did like this girl just swim Alcatraz, but like you kind of just about died.
Yep, 6 times.
Yeah, and like super scary, and like you're fighting back right now too. Like you're going through your own little journey right now.
Totally.
Like I was with you 4 weeks ago, and you're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know if I'm never practice again, and like how am I gonna do this? So you're on this journey back.
Totally. And it's been interesting because, I want to do things because I don't want to die, that belief system. That's not going to make you live more. It's just going to make you more afraid of dying. And so if you can decrease that fear, like, again, the only secure thing in life is that you will die. So go live.
Right.
Things abundantly become a lot easier. Like now I'm in this effort mentality of like, yes, I care, but how much do I care, and where do I want to put my attention, and how do I want to spend my time? So it's really given me like a freedom almost of like, that's the inevitable. Go have experiences, go have bad ones, go have good ones, go be human, like allow yourself to have that space.
So with people like me who are very like try to control, because I think that that's probably what I'm trying to do is,
Sure.
And is there things that, I mean, we talk about like there's a lot of ways to change that, but like, do you I guess how would you fix me? It would be like, go do a mushroom trip, or would you say like go
It'd be
do
a fun first attempt.
All the things, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, yeah, first, I think within neurofeedback, because I get a roadmap on your brain, there are people that want to go more of the psychedelic assisted therapy route, and some medicines aren't good for them, or one will be better than the other. So even just
Right.
getting like, how is your brain? What's the best thing for you? And what are the goals from that?
Okay.
And the thing about control, really, it's perceived control. But if you're planning for the worst case scenario, and that way, if anything less than the worst case scenario happens, we feel safe. That's a survival mindset. Your mind's in stress. So the element of control is like, I'm going to do the best I can. That's it. Like having that no attachment, no
Right.
emotional connection to it.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I do constantly. Like I'm a poke the holes person. Like I'm a what could this yield type of person, good or bad. I weigh everything.
It just is, though. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, what else?
I don't know how long we've been talking.
42 minutes.
How much time do you got? Another 15
11,
minutes?
15.
Yeah,
It's
15 minutes.
15.
Okay. I mean, I would love
Might
to
need to
talk
cut
about
this segment
psychedelics, but because I think it's just one of those things that's new. I think that you've got a ton of experience with that sector, and I think that it's a part of your practice too that you can utilize in a very legal fashion in a way. And so not only are we have the tools to rewire, but like I feel a little bit like psychedelics are a tool of reconnecting, but there's a whole lot of other things that go into why the craze of psychedelics is coming back, I think. And so maybe talk about that just a little bit, how you use them in your practice.
Well, it's starting to get destigmatized, which is a beautiful thing to see. And it's so funny to me, like alcohol, for example, it's whatever. Like if you want to go get mimosas right now, we could. Like it is totally fine to, and it's so bad for you.
Right.
And so what these medicines can do, I'll use the example of MDMA. From a brain perspective, it shuts down the amygdala 500%, and shuts down the amygdala to 2%, and it increases the frontal lobe 500%. So you're able to see things, experiences past, present, future that you have no emotional charge to and can work through them. So it really allows you to feel it and not try to intellectualize why it happened. It happened. How are we going to work through it?
So tell me, like, what does the amygdala do and control? Or
the amygdala
whatever?
is the fear center. So it works with the limbic system, which is our emotional system, and it perceives a threat response. So if we're constantly in a state of survival or something bad happened to us as a kid, that's going to be enlarged. It's going to be heightened, which then clouds your perception of your reality, because everything could be a threat.
Is it different? Is there a magnitude of if something happens to you as a child or if something happens to you as an adult, which one is maybe worse in the fear response or trigger or whatever we call it these days?
So this is a big one for the parents out here. Children's subconscious are fully developed by the age of 9. So how your hardware is wired is by the age of 9. Things shift and express differently, but childhood trauma, childhood events have a significantly bigger impact than it occurring as an adult. One being as a kid is you can't really understand it. And as an adult, we tend to rationalize and make meaning out of it, whether it's good or bad. But these events, and it's never about the event. It's how are you going to deal with the event and what are you going to learn from it? Because life has bad things in it, and that's okay. So
is it when bad things happen to a kid that's under 9, not developed, it's hardwiring more in their brain?
Yeah, their brains are still developing, so it's a bigger event, and they can't make meaning, they can't understand it, and so they're trying to, because they're making sense of it, what typically happens is they turn the mirror on themselves. I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, this wouldn't have happened if I was likable, whatever it may be. Those belief systems get deeply ingrained. Right.
So with different psychedelics or whatever, right, you've got a lot of different, I won't claim to be an expert, but like you have MDMA, you have like DMT. Well, I don't know which of this stuff is all legal, so we may have to get this out. But DMT, you've got like ayahuasca, we've got, like an edibles. Like, how do you determine, or is it like it's not a one fits all thing, or?
Correct. What I'm specifically looking at is a brainwave called the alpha brainwave. And alpha is your idling brainwave, your ability to shift states, transition, pay attention, move on from something. And when we see someone with a high trauma, PTSD, for example, we'll see a high amount of alpha, meaning that they're idling, they're having a hard time not reliving, even though they may not consciously be reliving in the moment, their brain's still stuck in the past. And so specific medicines will either help that alpha brainwave shift or move. And that's what I'm looking for, is like how much and where are these brainwaves and what's going to be most impactful for that client.
And so it may be like they come in and they're saying, oh, hey, I've heard this has worked for other people, but you may be like,
I've definitely said we're not going to go that route. This is a better route, and this is why.
Right.
So I'm not a practitioner to throw darts at a wall and see what sticks. We're going to do something that's, informed and educated.
Right.
So in your mind, is there such thing as a bad trip?
No, I don't think there's anything as a bad trip. I think experiences are happening as they need to, and sometimes the really, really bad ones are like, whoa, that was bad, and now I have these things that make me feel good, or it gives you some perspective.
Right.
And that's why, especially after my cardiac arrest, it's not that I'm fearless, but it's like, yeah, that's real life. It's going to happen. And I was living my life as if I was immortal. Like, death to me, I'm 32. It seems so far away. And then one day you wake up and you're being told you died. And so it's right in your face. And I'm like, well, this is the most secure thing that will ever happen to me, is that I will die. What experiences do I want to have? Do I want to be in nature? I want to do these things. So I'm going to go do them
Right.
Because you die.
Right.
There is no fear around it. Like, don't let the fear of dying hold you back. If you can accept that one truth, you will be so much more free.
Yeah.
Well, you're going back to the earth either way, so you might as well walk with your shoes off.
And even people with PTSD and anxiety or depression and insomnia, it's like, how do you want to live your life? That's not how you want to live your life.
Right.
Right. And so part of it is being a willing participant to that. But people have a hard time imagining a world or an identity that's not anxious, or doesn't have PTSD, because their brains are in survival. So it's allowing it to be more flexible and more open. And in psychedelics too, you can experience many different levels of connections with, whatever that is.
The divine or whatever.
Yeah, that are, they're so profound you can't put words to them.
So I'm thinking about good trips and bad trips. I'm a pretty happy person, so like I don't have a lot of the bad ones. Mm-hmm. But like when you're like in that state and you like see something from your past, or like vividly you remember something so well, good or bad, like is there any way during that experience that it's changing for the better, like recognizing that? Or like a kid, from a childhood trauma that comes in and, they're an adult now and they go back and they actually see what actually happened to them. Like you kind of see that in flashbacks in movies, but like, is that what it's like?
Yeah. And so I'll get a little funky on you here, because when we're talking about the use of psychedelics, there is no time and space anymore. And so reliving an event, seeing an event, you're actually able to go in and process it differently, which can change the timeline of how your genes are today. Additionally, I'll give an example of a client who was unfortunately sexually molested as a kid, and she was really angry, rightfully so. Why would my dad do this? And I'm not lovable, and I would have been protected if I was lovable, and it really shaped her entire life. During her session, she was actually able to go back and be like, oh my God, I was just there. I'm a byproduct of this. He had a horrible childhood. He isn't working through his stuff. Like this is not at all about me. It was an experience. It was a horrible one, but I can actually have compassion of why someone would do that to a kid. That's horrible. And so I went from this state of rage to like, no, I get it now. Mm-hmm.
That's a wild.
Crazy.
That's crazy that, whoever that is, kudos to be able to recognize. You don't hear that very often of like.
I don't think you get there in talk therapy, like that much compassion for a horrible event.
That makes sense. What other success stories do you have that you can talk about?
Oh, I've got lots of. Let's see here. What are some fun ones? Yeah, a lot of them are very high. A lot of them are pretty high trauma, high anxious stuff. Some of them are even as simple as people that are just curious about the process. One of them was, I'm afraid to feel good, and they were doing things unintentionally. Not going to the gym or not whatever, because I don't know. Am I worthy of feeling good? And so they can be these really simple little belief systems that are changing everything in their life.
Right.
And it's like, well, what if I allow myself to feel good, what does that mean? And not in like a short-term dopamine, but like if I'm actually disciplined about how I want to experience myself, that means I love myself. Do I love myself? I don't like myself. And it brings up all this other content that we're actually able to see what it means to be you.
I can just see Tanner's brain is just spinning. I knew it was going to happen this podcast. I've had so many of the Havilande and I have sat on a mat and had these conversations. We have had long conversations into the middle of the night in our friend group, and I call you and tell you about them because you always leave a conversation with Havilande thinking or wondering what could be better. I think it's one of the coolest things about having you as a really close friend.
Oh.
But I knew it was going to happen to him, so I just needed to interject that.
Curiosity is a really good thing.
Yeah, well, I'll take it. Is there any, I guess, when we're talking about success stories, like with military members, have you seen, major turnarounds from people that are have severe PTSD to maybe they
not wanting to be here anymore?
Right.
I've got multiple clients who were, had a plan in place, knew how they were going to do it. One of them even too, I'm going to drive my car and I'm going to make it look like an accident, but I can't. I have to have my seatbelt on because they knew I would wear my they've got a plan in place. And people that are got really deep into alcoholism because they didn't know how to cope. To people who weren't sleeping for 3-4 days at a time, reliving the trauma.
Jeez.
all of these people now are, helping in their community. They're happy. Some of them have gotten married. They're like, they figured it out. And that figuring it out is like the yummiest, most fun, special thing ever.
Right.
Anyone can figure it out. They just have to be curious. And whether it's starting with counseling or starting with neurofeedback or going into psychedelics, like there's so many other ways and avenues to get to that point. But I do know that everyone is deserving of having a high quality of life, and that we have to overcome ourselves to become ourselves. So whatever we're dealing with, there is always a solution and there's always a choice.
Right.
I think she's like as real as it gets in the sense, because I know her, but like you go like this, living through all of this stuff too and helping these people. So like a little bit gets taken from you in these experiences of trying to save somebody, in all honesty. So like you're a true one of the helpers for sure with it. Just, it's fun to watch. It's fun to see. It's fun to hear the stories. And I hope everybody, in our, people that listen, I hope this is the one that gets listened to the most. And if you need help or whatever, we can get a hold of Havilande and, whatever. I feel blessed that she's here, that she's a friend, and that we got to do this, because I think that there's some nuggets in here that our audience can take and go be conscious, I guess. I want you to close down too.
Yeah, you are creating your life. You can do whatever you want. There's positive consequences, there's negative consequences, but you get to do whatever you want. So you might as well make it fun. You might as well experience it how you want to experience it.
100%. Well, we might have to have you on again, but
Sure.
I really appreciate it.
Maybe Tanner and I need to go. Maybe Tanner and I
know.
need to go put the cap on, and then we'll have another
Right.
one. And
Go
be
through
like,
the
who the
report.
fuck are these guys?
Right? They're like,
Why did you
hilarious.
change them so much?
Right. Well, thank you again.
Yeah,
We
thank you
really
guys for your
appreciate it.
time. I really appreciate you guys. Good
All
questions.
right.
That's another one. Thank you.
See ya.
Yeah.